I spoke to a woman here. I've been stopped so many times. It's so flattering. But she came up to me with tears and said, "Oh my God, I listened to your talk. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. Can you help me with something?" I said, "Sure." She said, "I'm so scared of losing my son because I almost lost him at birth, and he's 5 now." And she said, I almost lost him at birth, and I'm so scared that he's going to be in a car accident.
Wow.
And she was in
It was
tears, and I said,
precise.
very precise, but it was a trauma, right? And I said to her, "You're lying." And she said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "You didn't almost lose him is a story. He's with you, right?" And she's like, "Yeah, and he's healthy and he's vital, yes." So you're in the fear of the story that you haven't reconciled what was obviously a traumatic event for which I have compassion, but you're sustaining that story. In one of my quotes, I say, "Past hurt informs future fear." So because you haven't reconciled the pain of the fear of loss, you now have a superimposed story of loss in the future. And she's like, "Oh my God." And I said, "You haven't lost your son. He's with you, but he's lost you." And then the floodgates really opened, right? And I said, "He's teaching you presence. And you're worried about past and future whilst he's right there with you. Nothing wrong. I don't know when he's going to go. I don't know when I'm going to go. My dad went to work when I was 17. I never saw him again. He passed. And I said, but right now you have the gift of presence, and that's the opportunity of being human, as cliche as it is to be fully here." And so I said to her, and this really opened up this like rainstorm of tears. I said, "Here's my invitation. When you get home, go meet your son." And it was just, presence.
Yeah.
So that's an experience. So to help people understand, when you're in a story, when you're in a dialogue that's based in past or future, you're not here.
I think somewhere it's a confused message that has been into like the self-help world, which
Yeah.
is live your emotion, which is oftentimes your fear.
Yeah.
And as you live them today, we think we are in the moment of them,
Yeah.
but they're actually a full past
Yeah.
that is just like wrapping the present.
Yeah.
We're not in the present.
No. And that's a subtle distinction I make between feelings and emotions. Feelings to me were sentient beings you can't not feel, right? Like she was obviously in a state of fear, which is an emotion, worry, angst, and in this sort of regret for what had happened and fear for what hasn't happened. She could have a feeling, I can miss my dad, but if I'm in the story of loss, now I'm in an emotion that's got nothing to do with reality, right? And so for her to be able to make the distinction between having a feeling, which in this case for her was immense amount of love for her son, being hidden by the emotion of the fear of losing him, even though he's right there. So if people can start to distinguish between, are you being emotional, which is energy over time, usually unexpressed feelings, because as kids we're, seen and not heard, or go to your room, or don't cry, and feelings are suppressed. And so as we become adults, we learn to not express feelings, especially men, right? That's why men tend to be on the side of more suicides, right? Like they're just trapped in a world of suffering. Whereas emotions are just when you've had this collection of feelings that you haven't expressed, and then there's the outburst, there's the anger, there's the frustration, there's the anxiety. So the more that we can become free to express ourselves moment to moment, it's a way of allowing, just like our food, we want to be able to excrete, take what we need from it. Same with feelings, there's something to be learned, but to be able to let that energy pass through us in an instantaneous, authentic way in the moment.
So with that case that you're just talking about, with really the first step is almost like a phase of hyperlogic. You step back and you say, is that fear rational? Where is it coming from? And when you observe it, it deflates because there's no substance to it.
Exactly. And that tends to be my methodology, is that I use like truth, like your son is here, there's nothing wrong with him. And then you've got the fiction of something, like I said to her, do you know categorically that your son is going to die in a car accident? Of course, the answer is no. So then why are you holding on to an illusion that is creating the angst, which is removing you from the very thing that you want, which is connection with your son?
Actually, in the world of probability, and with all the children that exist, the probability that he has that happens to him is like
minuscule.
It's minuscule.
Yeah. And it is available. I mean, I don't wish this on either of us, but we might be in an accident tomorrow, right? But that equally, to me, brings the beauty of the mortality of what it is to be human, and why it really invites us to make the most of right now. So it's the antithesis of what she was doing. She was caught in the illusion of time, missing out on the beauty of this being that she adores, who's right there in front of her. It's the madness of the mind, is that we've become so preoccupied with this idealized future, or sometimes worst case scenario, that we're missing out on the very opportunity that is to connect with someone right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What would you think, it may be a very difficult question to answer, but
Sure.
why the human nature, the human psyche tends to get more attached to those limitations than to be attached to the moment that provides so much more?
It's not actually that hard of a question because if you understand the nature of the ego, it wants to be right.
Yeah.
So I write in quotes, I say, being right is the poor man's version of self-worth, right? So people will fight, especially in relationships, right? Like, I'm right, you're wrong, and the other person is, no, I'm right, you're wrong. It's two kids having a tantrum in adult bodies, right? But that's just the ego that is desperately holding on to its existence, and it has to because it's fictitious. So that's why the fight for limitations is there, because the very nature of the ego is illusory. So if I don't have evidence to support my own story, then I die, which is the fear, which comes back to what I said, which is the greatest opportunity. I tell people, in order to be fully alive, you have to constantly die to the idea of yourself.
So it's the addiction and the training that we got to maintain continuity in our lives, which is to be logic, to be congruent, to be intelligent, to be all of this, that becomes the obstacle, because we feed a story that actually is not what it is.
It's madness, isn't it? I can remember I work with a lot of pro athletes. I was working with a PGA Tour guy, and we'd had great success. We tripled his winnings in 2 seasons. If you're a business and you 3x your business in 2 years, it's pretty good, right? But he hadn't had enough wins, and he's like, maybe if you caddy for me and you see what actually happens inside of the ropes. And I was like, sure. So I can remember it was about the 8th hole, playing okay. We're sort of in the top 10-ish. It's day one. It's a long tournament. And he hit a shot to the green. It was a long way from the hole. I gave him his putter, and he said, watch me 3-putt this. Right? So that was his declaration. So for people who don't follow golf, that's not good. Ideally, you want a 1-putt. That would be a birdie. 2-putt is a par. 3-putt is a bogey. So right there, I saw that that's his brain's way of trying to protect itself, because he's coming from fear. If he declared, watch me 3-putt this, even though that's absolutely not what you want, at least he gets to be right, and so he's not embarrassed. Do you see? So it's insane how people will fight for their own limitations. And from that point on, I realized how insidious the ego is, because it will talk itself into sabotage just to be right, even though it's the antithesis of what their soul and heart really wants. It's mad. And then you don't have to really think hard as to why people drink, do drugs, as a means of trying to escape. So my world is to help people get out of that world of suffering, limitation, and discover, as I said, my product, which is true freedom.
So being right is the disease. The need for being right is the disease.
As I said, it's the poor man's version of self-worth, because the ego doesn't have any value in of itself. But if I can be right about my own limitations, at least there's a justification. There's some sort of payoff for me. They're like, see, I knew that was too good to be true. I mean, what? Like, how uninspiring is that? But at least you got to be right that your partner left you, you lost your money, your business collapsed. It's insanity. That's the ego.
There you go. One day I remember I asked someone that was actually fairly having a powerful presence.
Yeah.
And I was asking him, in the Diamond Sutra, they're saying you need to go beyond your body.
Yeah.
Then you need to go beyond your senses.
Yeah.
Then you need to go beyond your feelings, your emotion. You need to go beyond your mind. And then the last one was you need to go beyond your waking consciousness.
Yeah.
And that one like troubling me. Like, if I go beyond my waking consciousness, that means the one you will experience after waking consciousness is not the one who is experiencing waking consciousness right now. So I says, who is the I that is experiencing the current waking consciousness?
Yeah.
And he says, that's your ego.
Yeah.
The whole entity that you think is you as a person, that whole thing is false and needs to die.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's big.
It's big. And we're not fucking around here. This is, like it's the biggest contradiction, right? Because people, even with my work, and I've been stopped here, 50, 60 times a day, people want something, right? The energy of wanting, if you think about it, is creating time. Because if I want something, I don't have it. So now there's the I that wants, but now I've created time and space, which is creating stress. So then I'm in a position of lack. But if I am love, if I am freedom, we want to get rid of the idea of even in the I. It becomes an impersonal occurrence, right? So the person who wants something is the obstacle to the essence of what it is that you want. And that's why it's so beautiful, and we can philosophize about it all day. But to actually experience that is liberation. That's what all of the Eastern philosophies talk about, like in moksha and satori, this awakening, right? So yeah, the idea of an I tell people, it's not that you want to be free, it's that you are freedom itself. That's an entirely different realm.
And you believe in an identity that is not.
Yes.
And you're holding on to it.
Correct. So there's freedom. You are the essence of pure possibility looking through a lens of limitation. And that's the game of cosmic hide and seek. That is the Houdini act of what it is to be human. The ego is the straitjacket, and we're the essence of freedom that's looking to break out of it.